or
No, you sound fine.
Yeah.
Well, we're live, Danny, so it's
we're live now. Too late.
There we
Good
go.
afternoon,
You sound fine.
guys.
better figure it out, man.
Got it.
Welcome back, guys. We got a special guest today. It's Danny Soul, owner of CrossFit Soul. Correct, Danny?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, pleasure to have you. Guys, this is the trial of David Castro. We're going to be talking about today, of course, the big news that came out yesterday. The PFAA.
We are the jury.
Demanding his resignation.
CrossFit Soul, that's Miami, right?
Yeah, we have
Noah Olson's gym?
Not Noah Olson's gym. We have two locations. One is in West Miami.
Why are you laughing, TJ?
It was a good guess. It was a good guess.
Dude, Noah Olson's in Miami a lot, man.
He lives in Miami. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they ask you to say that?
No, I didn't. That's why it was funny as shit.
We have two locations. We have one in Miami and one in Broward County in Dania Beach, technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So listen, guys, everybody's got a lot to say about this, obviously. It's been the hot topic since we saw the Instagram post yesterday, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about the PFAA. Let's bring up their demands here that are on the screen now. Everyone's seen this.
Demands. Specifically demands.
CJ, what do you think? What's your initial reaction?
My just initial gut, like my knee-jerk reaction is it's premature and it's emotional, personally. And so I think that with that, I think they might have shot themselves in the foot and been a little premature on some of the demands. And I think the CrossFit might feel like their backs are against the wall and it might work out for the worse for them personally. And I'm pretty sure I've heard that somewhere in the YouTube sphere in the last 24 hours as well. But that was what I felt like initially. CrossFit doesn't do super well with demands, regardless of what they are. And even if they were leaning to do all of these things, I think they might be maybe a little less inclined to do them now, right? Especially if Dave still has power, depending on what's happening internally. That's my initial thoughts. Fucking John.
Do you think, would it be fair to say the main thing that we're looking at here is obviously point number 3, the demanding the firing of Dave Castro? Is the safety council thing and the transparent, I don't think you're going to get the transparency from the third party investigation, right? Beyond what they want to share. Is it just fair to say just point 3 kind of we're all hung up on, right?
I think 2 sounds great, but 2 could also be like the death of
CrossFit,
the sport as we know it, right? In its like purest, unknown and unknowable sense, right? Like, who are these people that are going to be on this independent safety team? Do they have CrossFit backgrounds? Are they, are they versed in the sport? Are they biased to a certain camp? Like, how much say are they going to have? Like, if you have, I don't know, 50 deadlifts into a mile sprint, yeah, that's super risky for a hamstring, but is it dangerous and shouldn't be tested? Like, how much pull are they going to have, right? I think there's so much nuance in that number 2 that I'm uncomfortable with in that sense, right? And I don't know, that could be just to make sure, because the things they've asked in the past are so rudimentary, right? Even though they weren't handled right, like rope length, or whatever it is, right? If it's just that kind of stuff, then I think it's fine. But I think there's just so much nuance that needs to be snuffed out before that happens. Sure. And that seems like the longest conversation of all of them, right? Is this concept right here. Certainly not something that can happen probably before Dave Castro gets fired, if he gets fired at all. So,
sure. Danny, what do you think?
I don't even know that there's really an independent safety team that works for like the UFC, which inherently there's a ton of risk in. I don't like, but again, just like CJ said, I agree with, in theory, it makes a lot of sense. Now, should there be a safety team to check the efficacy of what the games are doing and Dave's events, etc.? Yeah, internally for sure. An independent safety team, I don't know that that's needed. But again, in theory, sure, that makes sense. I like to think that exists already internally. You know, it's
Right.
interesting. I have consumed very little YouTube and talking headness about this topic since it came out. Really wanted to like be fresh, but I did watch tiny bit of Savan yesterday, and I kind of feel like whatever the PFAA should be, should almost be their role.
That's how I feel. I feel if you took the PFA board as these names down here, if all of these names just retired, the ones that are still competing, I'm not telling them to retire, but that was the safety team. Yeah. Like I'm on board with that. There's people in every camp. Fee is brute. Vellner's kind of by himself. He's not a hard work pays off athlete. Royce is mayhem. Like there's a lot of different camps out there. It's not like you have one like a biased camp, but they're all competing still. But if you had names like that weren't competing still, I'm totally on board with that being your safety team.
I mean, look, when I was with Loud and Live, I was the programming director for Loud and Live for 2 years. We would have to submit our stuff to be checked to HQ and at a time to the PFAA. You know? So,
okay.
I mean, that I feel like that's something that should already exist and a function they should potentially serve. Now, to John's point, it for sure has to be a diverse group. I'm not even saying it has to be those guys, maybe
but
it's
guys like that. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. Guys like that, people who have retired, someone like a Sam, like folks that like have a ton of experience in the space but don't necessarily have like a dog in the race,
Freaking like Hepner would be all over this. You know what I mean? Like guys like that, like, Panchik. You could have Scott Panchik, Hepner, and they're not the Masters games. That's their own thing. It's not the tactical games. That's their own thing. They wouldn't have a dog in this race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I also think it's a very gray area of like, what are we checking the efficacy of? Like, are we having people review Dave's workouts and tell us like, just like CJ said, like 50 deadlifts at 225 into a mile sprint. Like, hey man, that's not safe for our hamstrings. Guys, I got fucking news for everybody. Sorry, I cursed. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
It's fine. You can curse.
You're good.
Okay.
CJ cusses the most in this podcast, so you're fine.
But I got news for you. Nothing we do is safe. Really,
not at the highest level.
And I got news for you. Not at the affiliate level either, man. I'll say it exactly how I'm thinking about it. Like affiliates that have a new client come in, have them go upside down with 14 ab mets under their head and do these ridiculous versions of kipping handstand pushups is not safe either. Like,
probably not.
Yeah, no shit. So we face that a lot in our space and in our sport.
So, and I don't think, along with the affiliate thing, you cannot treat the games like an affiliate. You are like your class. You cannot do that. They're separate things. When you're teaching Pee-wee football and people how to tackle, you would not treat that the same way you treat NFL football. You just they're not the same. One is a professional level. These are the best in the world. They're the fittest people in the world. You have to test them and see what truly what capabilities are. That's the point of it. And I'm not saying swim in murky. I'm not saying swim in murky water that's 1,000 meters But
John, I don't know if that's really relevant.
Minimize it and make it like everything is the safest thing in the world.
I don't know if that's entirely what they're saying or if that's relevant. They're asking for the safety team to liaise, like not on the basis of what goes on in affiliate. It's for the game specifically. It's not like I don't think they're trying to draw a comparison to what's acceptable in affiliate.
I do think that what John did hit on, and it's a huge point of contention for me, is that like our community has too this is going to piss a lot of people off, but it has too much of a voice. Everybody wants to be heard. Everyone wants their say. Everyone feels like they deserve to give their opinion, and they're looking at this from their lens. They're looking at this from CrossFit whatever in whatever city, and they're judging Dave, the games, the drowning, the safety, the workouts from their own perspective. And in my opinion, that's some of the most challenging aspects of the sports side is that the community is mixed into it, and all these turkeys want to have a fucking voice and their say in everything. And that, I think, is a huge issue. And that's why we get into that's the same reason why Greg Glassman was crucified, was because everybody wants a voice and everyone needs to be heard and everyone needs to throw their hat into the ring.
So kind of on that note,
turkey is such a awesome name call. By the way,
so big, right?
So
on
good.
that note, before we get into the demands about or the demand for Dave to be fired, CJ, like, is the PFAA? I was looking at my other monitor. CJ, or whoever can answer first.
I'm ready.
Is the PFAA like are they in a position to be making these demands? So we've seen that Brent's saying they had a call with 89 people. We were talking about this last night, and that's a small percentage or relatively small of the entire games field. Like, how does it work? Like, how do you think it can work for them to make this demand, but then maybe half of the games field from this past year or whatever isn't on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are now, right? With like a hindsight focus, you know what I mean? And so
you think
I think it's more so now. I don't think it's 50% again, right? Like whatever it was, 30, you know, whatever the number was that's been put out, right? Of how many people responded and how many people didn't respond to whatever that list was and that number was. I assume there are more people now, but I you know, it's for sure not all of them. Very, very unlikely that rookies just trying to get in that are or like close semifinal athletes are going to put CrossFit, what they are trying to break into, on the line because of, you know, of safety. And this isn't to diminish Lazar's death or anything like that. Just to be clear, for whatever it is, there's nothing insensitive about what it is. We know what we're about to say, but I don't think people are going to put that and what happened above their future into the sport, because if they push too hard, maybe there isn't a sport. You know what I mean? Or like there's a so like this, their livelihood versus, you know, what is, you know, morally right. And it's a hard thing to do when you're trying to break in, when you're Brent or Laura or Pat and you've made hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially, you know, breaking into the seven digit number with sponsors, etc. It's an easy thing to say and to withhold yourself out, right? Or to boycott, etc. It's not that easy when you're trying to break it in. So
very well said. I agree with every single thing that you said, bro. I could not have said that better.
A quick question, like their demands, right? It says demand, or what?
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at with, if it's only 50% of the athletes, you know, do they have the
right? Do they have the clout? Sure.
What if HQ was just like, I don't care?
I feel like that's on the table. I feel like that's for sure on the table.
What happens?
You know,
CJ,
when you answer that, are you wearing your 2024 CrossFit hat or are you wearing your 2016 CrossFit hat? Because I feel like in 2024, in this day and space where everyone, like I said, wants to be heard, et cetera, I feel like CrossFit is willing to listen to this more than ever. If Greg was still around, if this was
sure 100%
formative life in CrossFit, he would say fuck off and he would laugh this out the window and you'd get a sarcastic tweet like what he got pushed out of CrossFit for. You know?
And but also
100%.
Like you have, you know, 2015 through 2018, which is probably the best games era that we've ever had, with the same attitude.
What if they don't?
I got news for everybody. None of this is new. I mean, this is a new social media post, but like I've been coaching at the games with an entire heat of athletes in the back saying, we're not going to go out. We're not going to go out if Dave's still here. We're not going to go out if he doesn't tell us what this next workout is. This is nothing new.
Right.
You know, it's unfortunate that, again, Lazar's death is involved in this whole process, and that makes it so complicated and sensitive, and, you know, takes that people have, they sound heartless, but none of this is new.
Right. To answer the question, what if they say no? I don't know. What if they say no? What if they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, or if they just don't respond. I think that's very possible. But I do think the day and age makes it much more challenging with cancel culture, et cetera. You know, but as far as the athletes just withholding, I mean, okay, it's 200 athletes at the top, maybe they get replaced. They'll go to rogue. They'll do everything except the season. We don't even know if the season's going to happen. Like if the season doesn't happen, you know what I mean? Like if this, like, so say they pause it or whatever it is, you know, then they really have no leg to stand on. Like, what are they pushing for? Like, they're not going to not go to Rogue or Wadapalooza, right? Or Tier Cup, even though they're getting what they want there, right? You know, Tier put out that bid. And so I don't know. They don't have a lot of backing, right, to make the demands for sure, at least in my opinion, at this point in time. When the investigation gets rolling, maybe.
I agree with you, but I also feel like right now CrossFit has the less backing than they've ever had as well. So it's kind of like unprecedented what we're dealing with at the moment. You know, like I said, prior to this, Greg would ignore your email and whatever, wipe his ass with that thing, go on a podcast and make fun of you, you know? But I feel like CrossFit's on shaky ground. Affiliates are not renewing their year after that announcement right now. They are hurt. CrossFit's hurting.
Yeah, like they can't really. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say this is before we just slide into the affiliate thing. If athletes aren't willing to band together in strike, then the demands are empty. But the problem is the community or the athletes, right? Like there aren't professional athletes. Like we define professional athletes by how much they get paid, not by a card they have, right? Like it's not the PGA Tour. You know what I mean? Or it's not the MLB or the NFL. And so this is the problem. It's like, how far down the list does that need to go for it to be valid, right? Does it need to be the top 500 athletes in the world?
The top athletes don't really matter here. It's the affiliates. Like you have to appease the affiliates.
Sure. Right. Exactly.
That's where that's where your money is at.
Yep.
Okay.
And how do you appease that?
And like Danny said, like the affiliates were already like in a super weakened state. Like CrossFit's in an all-time low with the affiliates and people canceling. It's a really bad time. Like they can't really afford this more damage to the brand and to be fighting fighting on this front as well, right?
Right. Right. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Number one.
So number one, what you want to go through these again?
Yeah, well, we only did number two. I think that's what we leaned in.
You want to look at number one. So number one, we demand an appropriate level of transparency between CrossFit and the PFAA regarding their third-party investigation and what changes they're making going forward.
I feel like this is happening.
Well, my understanding is CrossFit's under no obligation to be fully transparent about that, and they're only going to share what they want to, right?
Yeah, but Don on the announcement, like we got this guy doing it. This is the investigation. This is what he's going to do. I feel like they would do the investigation, and whatever they find goes to CrossFit, and that's on CrossFit and their lawyers to release it.
Yeah,
it's not public. It's not public.
Well, I mean, everybody already thinks the worst thing possible. Like it's only you wouldn't, if it was the worst thing possible, and then let's just say it was negligence and Lazar's death could have been prevented. That's what everybody already is saying. Like, so like it does them no good to not release everything that they find out.
Well, what I think makes this more complicated and where their feet are set to the fire is that there's a family at play here too, and I have to believe that if there is anything sketchy, any negligence that comes out at all, I feel like the family will
100%.
I don't see them staying quiet.
To prevent them from being sued.
Yeah, like I hate to say this, but like I'm sure CrossFit's best case scenario that they're hoping for is that the investigation comes out and says, regardless of CrossFit's efforts, we would have unfortunately lost this young man. Regardless,
he had a heart attack.
But is that even like, I know they're going to do an investigation, and to me, what the investigation, like the only things that I'm interested in it revealing is maybe what the chain of command looked like and maybe the actual details of the safety plan. But we have the video of him drowning. You know what I mean? You don't really get much more evidence than that. And I can't see an investigation saying something like, we couldn't have avoided him drowning. We have the video, and it doesn't really look like it was an unavoidable situation.
I agree with you. Every word you said. I do not. Yeah. For me, from my perspective, it does seem like it was avoidable. It does seem like a great deal of negligence, You know, I don't think it was like bad programming. I don't think it was unsafe programming. I don't think any, you know, I don't think a Fikowski could read that workout and say, that's not safe. I could probably, you know, now in hindsight, we can talk about it, but I could probably identify 10 CrossFit Games workouts that were more dangerous than that.
At least.
I think Lazar
At
would look
least.
at that workout and say that's not unsafe.
I mean, Lazar did the workout a couple
He
days.
did the workout. Right.
Yeah, and that's not what we're hung up on. Isn't the workout itself? It's the response, right? Like, so
Sure, but I also think that, you know, like why he died is it does carry a lot of weight with decision making and things moving forward. What if he wasn't fit to do the workout? What if he was unhealthy, right? Like what if he had a problem that was missed or he knew about it? And then, so, you know, this is like a pre-screen, like a pre-medical screening type thing. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
So like, what if he had a heart condition or what if he had an arterial issue, right? You know, like he didn't have a physical or whatever the rumor of his Dubai stuff is, you know, what if that holds a lot of weight?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it reduces the fault and safety responses, but I do think that plays a role even to support the PFAA in like safety for the athletes. Now that might not be the best thing for the athletes, but it is safety, right? So NFL, all professional athletes go through physicals, intense physicals to make sure that they are safe. We want to be professionalized. That could be something that this leads into, which might not be the best thing for athletes, even if it increases their safety and at least in like their livelihood, right? Because some of them just
so like you'd have a screening on like Wednesday before the competition.
Yeah, or something within the week. Yeah, or whatever it is, right? You know, and I don't know if there's any, you know, they don't get like NFL doesn't get screened before every game, right? They go through everything before they get signed, right? And before the season starts. But it is intense, right? They go through stress tests and things like that. They make sure their fucking heart works and, you know, all of the basic stuff. And so so I don't want it to, at least in my opinion, yes, it's important with the response and was it unavoidable or was it avoidable, etc. But at the same time, why he died plays a huge role, if not as big.
See, I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree. I don't think it matters at all. I don't think it matters if he suffered a heat injury, if it was cardiac, if he was, you know, dehydrated, whatever it was. At the end of the day, he exhibited textbook drowning signs for a minute. It doesn't matter what caused that. We're not blaming CrossFit for you know, whatever that may be. We're blaming CrossFit for their response. That's what they call. I think that's what the demand for Dave Castro to be removed is based on.
You think that response?
I actually don't.
Falls on Dave Castro.
I actually don't agree with if you think that's number 3. I think number 3 is different than that, but we'll get to that in a second when we get to that point.
Right, Travis.
But
guys, my volume low. People are saying my volume's low. Sorry, guys.
I think it's fine.
I can hear you fine. So I'm saying you think that response,
Sorry,
the response time, that responsibility falls on Castro. That's what you think?
No, I don't. I don't think so necessarily because I don't know. And that's what I said would be the main thing for the investigation to show is like who's the ultimate authority there. Because maybe it's Boz. Boz is the director of the game, right? Dave's the general manager of sport.
Yes,
Castro's the director of sport. I thought.
Right.
No, I think Boz.
It's all made up.
It's all made up. It's all made up. When Dave came back, he kind of took over that
Dave's
position
individual
again.
is Boz's teams. That's all you got. That's all you need to know.
That's all you got to know.
That's the.
So to answer. Right. So yeah. So to answer you, John, I don't know. So, but just as a general principle, to me, I think if you're at the top of the food chain, if you're the leader, you're in that director position. Like part of being a leader and is taking responsibility.
So okay. So for you, the investigation solely just falls on who is responsible for safety in the water at that time, whether it's the city with the lake or it's CrossFit.
Yeah.
And if there is not a person, like a person in charge of safety, if there's not a person.
There's somebody.
But I'm saying then that person would be responsible, correct?
Sure. I would say, like, realistically, say it's like a mid-level manager, safety officer, then they're truly really more responsible. But at the end of the day, you see this when shit goes sideways for a company. That's why you get paid the big bucks at the top of the food chain. You got to be the one to bear the brunt of responsibility.
I'm just trying to get a grip of like where you're at, and I'm saying if there's not like a main person that's his job, he is the sole responsible person. If it's not like that, then you're just saying the responsibility falls with Dave at that point because he didn't delegate something to be it.
Yeah. I would say so.
That's your position. Okay.
Yeah.
What
do you guys
think? I would agree with Travis. I think that, like, maybe not in everyone's CrossFit bubble, but in normal life, like jobs that hopefully everyone on this podcast has worked. When you make a mistake like that, when you fail at your job, I think it's as simple as you got to go. And I'm not saying that it's Dave's responsibility to sit there and assign how many lifeguards he's going to have per swim event, even though at Loud and Live, that was our responsibility. I'm not saying that that's Dave's job, but as the face, as the leader, I mean, when it's convenient for Dave puts his face right in the middle of it. He'll bleach his hair and put the cornrows in and put on the affiliate shirts, and he wants to be the guy on the mic in front of everything all of the time. Except now,
Well, we don't know that, right? I mean, we also don't know if he's like just being forced to be quiet, which I assume he is in general. I mean,
for sure.
Dave doesn't strike me. He's never been like, seems to have operated how he's wanted to.
Yeah, but I don't think they've ever
quiet, man. Like
he has, but it's also like there's a legal precedent here too, right? I think CrossFit has all just to be clear, Danny doesn't hate Dave. I just want to support him. There's just no. But it does seem like that. But I also feel like he's probably between a rock and a hard place of what he's allowed to say and what he's allowed to do. And so, but it does seem like he's quiet. I don't know. I think he's forced to be quiet. I feel like if he could talk, he would talk, personally. But he would probably incriminate himself in some way, some manner for whatever reason.
Potentially, and I agree with you. It's just. My point is, like, a guy died on his watch. Like, I'm not a Dave hater. I love Dave. I'm an OG CrossFitter. I've spent time with Dave. Like, I support, and I haven't always, but I have often supported him, and I still support him. But at this point, I think the leadership has found to not work. This does not work. Someone just died at our games. I don't think the sports side works. I don't think the affiliate side works. I personally think Dave and Don need to go. I think they both failed.
Here.
Last weekend.
Here. I'll agree with that one. I'll sacrifice Dave if I can get Don to be gone.
And then,
to be honest, Dave actually strikes me as the type of guy. I mean, it's like as a compliment that he sees it like that too. He's like, hey, I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to step down. Like, he strikes me as that guy, and I mean that like in a good way. Like, he's going to take ownership.
If that were to happen, though,
when maybe he doesn't have to.
Then what?
What? So, if they're both gone?
Yeah. Like, let's just fire everybody. The whole thing's messed up. Let's fire everybody. Figure it out. What do you want to do now?
I mean, I'll tell you where I would put it if I had a crystal ball. I think the treatment the sport deserves is the true treatment of an amateur sport. I think we need to embrace the fact that this is an amateur sport. I think it needs the same treatment that college wrestling gets or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like whatever, like these amateur lower level sports. I don't think it needs to be as professionalized. I think if Fikowski and these guys have their way, there's more separation between the highest level of elite and developing amateur athletes. And that's what I hate about where the sport is now. I think we need to embrace and recognize and realize that it's an amateur sport. The sport itself doesn't even have the money to fund itself. It is illusion. It is all fake. Affiliate owners, me, fund this whole thing and make it happen. And I think it's an illusion. I think the whole thing belongs. It should have never left the fucking ranch. I think that's where it belongs. I think it belongs in the warehouse. Like a true amateur sport does.
Interesting. So this is like probably diverging too far.
You were going to say that.
I know. No, it's fine. No, I want to build on it, but I want to reel it back in. Just because
I don't mind that. I'm just trying to.
No, I don't disagree with it. I think it would be ideal, and I think this leans into like should sport and affiliates separate. But I think we're kind of leaving the focus of this podcast, and we can talk about that at another time. So yeah, we'll pull it back in. But Danny, I agree 100%.
I want to make a point on that note, John, because that's something I've seen a lot of people say. and it goes in hand with, we're talking, well, how'd he die? Or, well, Dave took the games to this, or, all these other things. Like, what are we going to do if Dave leaves? I don't think any of that's relevant. Like, I think that's what I'm saying. To me, the main thing with the investigation is like, who does the accountability lie with? Because in my eyes, I don't need the investigation to tell me that they were negligent and it was an avoidable death. That's the only thing that matters to me right now is where does the accountability lie? It lies somewhere. It has to. It was I think we can all agree. Most people are, if you watch the video, we can all agree it was an avoidable death. So I don't think that, who's gonna what if Dave leaves? It kind of reminds me of like if like a parent of a young kid gets in legal trouble and has to go to jail or something. Like, well, think about the kids. Well, they still need to take accountability. Yeah, that's a separate issue. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Travis,
sure. So
I'm fine with that. I'm not hung up on that. I'm just saying you need a plan after that. Like, you can't just fire a bunch of people and be like, I hope it works out.
Well, I think
because that's what they did with the freaking CEO, and it hasn't worked out.
It was shit.
So, but you can't. So then, are you suggesting that maybe you can't fire Dave unless you have a replacement?
Well,
specifically. So just to be fair, right? In the sense, we have a replacement for Dave. Boz did it, and it was fine for that short period of time, right? Now, and I am too. And so again, this isn't me saying that we want Dave gone. I don't want him gone, but we've proven that Boz can manage the job. Okay. He can manage the job. He's a creative writer. He's also been with him since 2008. Okay. Like, he's been since not the first one. He was at the second one. He's been there ever since. Right. And so now I think all the problems that we've seen since then are probably higher up financially, real decision makers, private equity, Don, et cetera. But if Don's fine, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think to answer the question, like what happens, I think best case scenario is they clean house, they split sport, they sell sport for pennies on the dollar to someone who just wants to run the sport, who just loves CrossFit and understands that it's probably a relatively net even or a net loss for an extended period of time, and they can fulfill that and they can grow it solely and separately from affiliate programming. I think Don and private equity will do a good job pushing affiliate. They just make money, right? Like, they want to market it more. I think they could do an okay. They're clearly doing a shit job at sport, right? Like, their ability to push media on the sports side is bad. I mean, it's not just not okay. It's terrible, right? They're specifically like stunting all of their media channels, right? But for affiliate, I feel like it would be an easier play, right? They know there's money there. They know it's profitable on the affiliate side specifically. And if they didn't have sport sucking all the money away, maybe then that would be there. So maybe they split it. PE sells it for pennies on the dollar to, I don't know, anyone.
What if he sold it? He sold it to Greg Glassman, and then Glassman.
Well, Greg definitely wouldn't buy the sport.
No. And then Greg just gave it to Dave. And then like they just like circumvented everything.
That would be wild. Holy shit.
That's chess at a CEO level right there on business, on companies right there.
Yeah. I mean, I like CJ's idea. That sounds great to me. Do I think Dave should leave without a plan or replacement? No, but I will tell you, I feel like, and this is back to the community shit I was saying at the beginning of our recording, feel like our level of anxiety of what's life in CrossFit without Dave kind of proves my point that it's like, why are like, it's one person. This shouldn't be so synonymous. Like, this is a sport.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be.
And the programming sucked this year.
It doesn't help his case. The programming year does not help his case.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I didn't think about that. One of the biggest things that I push, Danny, is like to not be reliant and dependent on PT stuff, right? Like, don't be reliant on foam roller. Don't be reliant on going to get your neck cracked, et cetera, et cetera. I never even thought of it as like being reliant on Dave as CrossFit. And so on that note, I agree 100%, like even more so than I had before. And so while I still don't want him gone, that makes me lean away that like it will be fine, because we know it will. I try and convince hundreds of people or thousands of people that you don't need all the dumb shit you think you need. We probably don't need Dave to be successful and to move forward. That doesn't mean doesn't mean I want him gone.
But I do think it's wrong to blackball somebody out of their job, and I think that's essentially what the PFAA is doing. You know, they are.
I agree.
They are Greg Glaspening Dave right now. And when Dave resigns or gets fired a week from now, that's exactly what happened. Regardless,
that sucks. I agree.
Regardless if it's fine or not, I'm with y'all. I think the show will go on. I think it'll be fine. But I'm always going to think that's wrong.
I agree with you.
And it doesn't help that this was maybe the most biased programming of all time, like the worst programming compared to the
I don't think the board's concerned with that.
Of all time. No. I get it, but what's your job? To program for
right? Yeah. Like creating value for yourself.
Job. Aside from Lazar's, like say the responsibility falls with him. That's the basis of whatever. Get rid of Dave. Aside from that, his job is to program the games, and it wasn't great either. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't help his case. This was the 2017 games. I'd feel a lot differently if that was what was programmed, right? But it wasn't.
Anything in the comments, Travis, that you've seen that we should address?
I think we did just kind of touch on it about the if Evelyn, if I was on the board right now, I'd want the sport spun off. I think that
as a whole separate company, like they're actually like. They're run by two different people.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be called the same thing, man. And like that is a stigma and something I fight every single day. Every time that I'm exaggerating to make a point now, but oftentimes when my phone rings in the gym, I answer it and I'm spending more time convincing people, no. I know it's called CrossFit. You're not going to do that. No. It's not going to look like that. I know it's intense to walk on your hands on ESPN. No. I don't even think they should be called the same thing at this point.
Robin Morgan, just watched Sev on podcast.
He said he didn't have a heart attack in Dubai. It was not.
So that was
okay.
Yeah. Actually, I can talk about that for a second. No, I can talk about that for a second because guys, Luca responded to Sev on like an Instagram comment saying that Lazar didn't have a heart attack or heart condition in Dubai, because that's been referenced a lot. And I think CJ, you were kind of talking about it a minute ago that we don't know if he had a heart attack, and it was kind of just like it was this thing that kept going around like, oh, Lazar had a heart condition, he had a heart condition, and I was kind of wondering about that because I had never heard specifically where that was coming from. It kind of just sounded like this type of thing that get it under wraps. It kind of sounded like this thing that just like kept getting cycled around that someone started. And then, so anyway, someone said last night, oh no, Lazar said it himself on Sevon's podcast when he did an interview. And then, so anyways, Brian Spin brought up the transcript last night and blah, blah, blah. And then I went and watched it, and he doesn't say anything about a heart condition. It really sounds like he suffered from severe dehydration. The only thing he mentioned about his heart was that his heart rate was 185 for 30 minutes. But like that's, he didn't mention anything about being in an arrhythmia, and that sounds like just a regular symptom of severe dehydration. And so to me, that's why I'm kind of like, whatever, just speculating. I don't think it's majorly important about the cause, but, he has a history. Okay. Well, so he has a history of, experiencing severe dehydration at the end of a 40-minute or so long event in the heat. And that's what this was here. To me, those are that's the common factor in these two instances. It seems a lot more likely to suggest that than implying that he has a heart condition.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems
I agree. And so hypothetical situation. We find out a few things from the investigation. He died, he died from something. Okay. There was an event. It wasn't just a pure fatigue and drown. Right. And say he could have been saved, right? Say that was avoidable. But we find out that
I think we need to agree on that before we move.
We can't agree on that. There's no way we can agree on that.
But we can't agree on that until we have the corner report.
He was bobbing for a minute,
and it will say that in the report. Travis.
Right? Yeah.
I don't need but okay. So let me.
You'll see. So you're going to see different videos, and I'm not saying I disagree with you in general. Okay. I'm on the fence, but it's hard to make a hard stance that like he could have been saved. That girl, those people right there. Even if there was an attempt to save him, right? So you're saying if there was an attempt, it would be better, and he still died.
Sure. So there was no system wide.
Your problem is there was no system to make an attempt. So even if they made the attempt and he still died, would you be upset in the same manner? I'm asking you.
Right. No, totally different. I think
you can't 100% say it was preventable.
I can 100% say with confidence it's unacceptable for somebody to be in the water for your first responder to be a civilian from the stands. That's ridiculous.
I agree.
No, you have no disagreement on that, Travis.
Okay.
I agree to that. Okay.
That's
I agree to that.
That's what I'm. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Carry on.
So,
where were you?
So either way, so that person, they respond right away, right? And so hypothetically they did. They still don't save him. But okay, either way, they don't respond. It happens the same way. We find out that there's 7 people in the water due to financial limitations, right? So then how do we disperse like blame or accountability at that point, right? Purely financial. They had to get volunteers.
You don't do an open water swim where you have to have more people.
Yeah.
So you change. So there's too much risk. Dave still took the risk based on whatever it was, and you feel like then at that point Dave is still responsible and it was inappropriate.
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
And honestly, I'm on that side too. Like if that's where we're headed with this argument, then yes, you know what I mean. If that's if you're in a pool, somebody's going to be able to save them.
I mean, look, again, going back to my time at Loud and Live, I think that's job this is a hot take, arguably harder than Dave's job. Okay.
What job? What job specifically? Loud and Live?
Yeah. Being
okay.
a program director for that, I think, is more challenging than a program director for the CrossFit Games. Maybe you're not criticized enough. Maybe there's not as many eyeballs looking at you. Maybe your programming is not looked at, how John was just talking about. However, from a logistical perspective, from a safety perspective, from an efficacy perspective, I think it's way more complicated. And I really don't know because I haven't been on that other side. So, I have to say that as well. But man, when we were looking at an event like that, we have to make the decision that's best for the safety of the not 80 people we have in the water, of 1,000 people we have swimming through the water over the course of 2 days. Right. You have if you have to shrink the footprint of your event to fit your budget to keep people safe, that's what you have to do, and that's I think the onus is on you. Just like it would have been with us at Wadapalooza. So,
yeah, I've competed at Wadapalooza once. I'm not a good swimmer. I'm actually always amazed that there hasn't been an incident at Wadapalooza, to be honest, because you've got so many, poor swimmers in the water. It's pretty crazy. And you guys definitely have a ton of people in the water, so that's good. Okay. So anything else to say?
Okay, so we demand. So number 3, I think we've addressed this. I mean, we kind of beat around the bush, but specifically
I'll add something real quick. And I know Fikowski has stated it's not that we want him to be fired from CrossFit. It's just we don't want him to be in that role anymore. So they want him to be with the affiliates and all that and have a role in that. It's just his current role is what they want him to be out of. They don't want him to be gone from CrossFit headquarters.
Right.
And it's slightly different than we don't want, fired from CrossFit period and not associated in any way.
Yeah. I mean, if you could show me what he's really doing at CrossFit HQ that benefits affiliates, sure. From where I sit, I don't see it at all.
It's not his role right now. It's not his job, right? His job's with the game.
I almost can't imagine how you're doing both. If you're
for sure
of the world's most elite fitness sport, where we are obsessed with trying to crown the fittest man, woman, and team every single year, how do you have time to worry about affiliates at that point? But sure, I guess I can be convinced that that's okay because the L here really lies in the sport. But I just have a bigger axe to grind with the rest of CrossFit for what they're doing for affiliates. So that's why for me the line is very blurred.
Interesting.
Craig says this guy hates Dave. We already addressed that. Danny loves Dave. Everyone here doesn't. I think
Danny loves sad. Dave. He's just got a weird way of showing it.
Well, Danny has a weird way of showing he loves everybody. It's fine.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's sad to see. It just reminds me so much of politics, where people are like I stand with Dave, like no matter what, you know what I mean? It's just because we're being critical of say if the responsibility falls on him, if we're being critical of how he did for his job performance, it's not a reflection of what people like we think of him as a person or anything. For me, it's purely just about like a job performance thing. That's it. If you're saying he needs to be fired.
So the cliff notes of this podcast are to fire Dave. No, I don't think so. I think Don should be fired directly. I 100% think it's going to continue to lean into other restrictions. And I only say that because in years past, they've had more safety, right? It's like, why would it change, right? Just look at, I think Hiller posted it, two things. It was the first time there was a straight swim and no turnaround, which makes safety look less in general. Covering 800 straight meters is way different than 400 meters or 250 meters in the bay, right? That's a triangle. You know what I mean? Like 10 people there look way more than if it was 300 meters straight out, right? And so I think that plays a role. And so optics look really bad, right? But I don't know, man. I feel like he might have been between a rock and a hard place on making decisions. But again, if that comes down to it, I don't disagree with you guys saying that, maybe it should have been changed, right? There's a ton of colleges there. They could have figured out a pool situation for the first event. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I'm hard. It's hard for me to just like say he needs to be the scapegoat when I feel like a lot of other people over the time or over this past year have done a lot worse for CrossFit and maybe put people in positions that aren't advantageous to success.
Yeah, and I think that like I'm calling for accountability from HQ for somebody, just from a perspective, and so not necessarily Dave, because I don't know that it was necessarily his responsibility, but I believe a fuck up of this magnitude, you get fired. That's it.
And what if Dave wanted more lifeguards, but Don was like, we don't have the money?
Then it still falls on whoever okayed the program and the safety plan.
Yeah,
then you're like, you need to change the programming then.
Yeah, you made that point like earlier.
I got you.
So I don't, and that's the thing. It's just like people are like,
I tend to side with CJ in this. No, I really do. I mean, I think it's going to end up with Dave leaving, but
100%, unfortunately.
But I side with CJ as far as like, I want different management all the way through.
So, but
at least on the game side.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, John, if we get the investigation and there was negligence at CrossFit and it falls, say they're not going to name anyone, but we find out there was a safety officer or whoever, and there was responsibility. Like would you agree that they should be fired from their position for failing so severely?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And that could be Dave.
And if it's a mid-level guy, like you're saying, and like Dave is the head of like that guy, and he was like, this is fine, and like he okayed it and everything, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right to be blackballed from your job at all. But if that's what comes out and that's the explanation they give, what you just said, I get it. You know what I mean? I know Sevon will be like, have a heart attack the other way, but I get it. I don't want it necessarily, but I get it. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I ultimately just want a betterment of the sport. I want it to go on. I want it to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's obviously what we all want right now. What that looks like is very fluid.
And to CJ's point, like I feel like it's a management thing across the board. Like this whole thing just needs to be gutted and reinvented because for a lot of reasons, I just don't think it's working right now. I don't.
Do y'all feel bad for Bill and Katie?
I mean, in what sense? Because they're so associated with CrossFit?
No. I feel like so many people are like, Bill and Katie, please save us. Like, just buy the CrossFit Games. Just do it.
I know.
Like, how many times do they get asked that question? Right? Or like approached?
Does that even make sense?
Because Rogue is so great. But Rogue's awesome. It's so great. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
negative brand.
I mean, their relationship with CrossFit is why they're here. It's very unlikely that that's still their most profitable sponsorship and bit, like
they lose money on the Invitational.
Oh, they lose a lot of money on the Invitational. I mean, I assume they lose millions on the Invitational by how much they pay out.
Their company is so successful that it doesn't.
Yeah, but it's successful because of its grassroots in CrossFit solely.
100%. I'm just saying. I bet they get approached.
They would have never broken out of the CrossFit space without the start in CrossFit. That's where their stuff gained, and then they went, like global and astronomic. They went everywhere, right? Like strongman, powerlifting, college, football, right? I mean, they were outfitting, $40 million weightlifting rooms. That's crazy, guys.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it was birthed through their relationship with CrossFit, but I feel like we need to show Bill and Katie a lot of love because their gear and their brand is without fail. It is
100%.
No, they're the staple. That's what I'm saying. Rogue is beautiful. Like it's always like that. Everybody loves Rogue. They always do the right thing. They pay for their athletes' travel and hotel. Like they do everything right.
Yep.
And it feels like headquarters does nothing right. Right. So like I just guarantee. I mean, like they would have gotten CrossFit. They would have bought it by now if they wanted to. The games, and they don't want to at all. But
why would they want that brand, like that negative brand, like, especially right now
to save it? I'm just saying. I bet they get asked a lot. I wouldn't. Them, but
it's a dumb question. Like, why would they?
Dewey Cooper, do you think Iron Man goes through this heads must rolls drama every time an athlete dies during their events, which is numerous? And so the reason why they don't is because it's moderately expected. And the reason why CrossFit is because it's the first time. Correct. And so this is the same reason why people don't go up in arms about military. I mean, they do, but for the most part, right? It's expected that you're going to put your life on the line. First responders, firefighters, etc. Right? So like when a firefighter goes into a fire and dies, there is not this huge like revolt and public backlash for safety concerns because it's happened before. And it's not something new, and there isn't that like sticker shock of what it's going to be, right? And this is the first time. If this happened 10 times, the sport wouldn't be here. But in general, right, it's not. It just hits different because it's the first, and I think that's almost the sole reason, and because it's expected, or like it's more of a risk, and it's been expected over the years. The first time it happened, Iron Man probably went through something really similar, which was probably around the first time that the event ever happened too. For sure.
But it was like 1950s when Iron Man went on. Like they were like, we didn't think that happened, but it did. So
to me, it's not necessarily like I phrase it like this: heads must roll not because someone died necessarily, but to me, someone needs to be held accountable because you're holding an event. Like let's put it plainly, where your first responders were civilians, and it's almost comical.
That's a guess too, right?
From what we've heard, by all accounts, people were jumping in the water. Like that story.
The people who responded first, not the people on the paddle boards. I got you. Okay.
So I would say heads will roll because to me that's flat out unacceptable. Your first responders are people in the stands, and secondly, it's almost comical that Dave's taking Instagram stories while Luca's running around frantically looking for his brother while he's been at the bottom of the lake for 10 minutes. That to me signifies that they had a piss poor plan, piss poor communication. We know that they probably didn't give it too much thought because the people on the paddle boards had no PFDs, no life-saving equipment, no radios. So that to me signifies a system issue. And that's why I keep going. It goes up to the top where some people maybe will blame those people on the paddle boards. But, like they failed on a system-wide level. And that can't be denied. I don't need an investigation to see that. They didn't we've seen enough firsthand accounts that it took them quite a bit of time to recognize that he was missing, and that's unacceptable.
For sure. So I don't think anyone disagrees with
arguing
that.
Against you. You keep hitting on this, and we're all like, yeah, we agree.
He's just hard. I think the thing is like that's Travis's main concern, and like that's his only concern, right? Is the failed post drowning concept. Like as soon as he went under, everything within that time frame is where Travis's biggest challenges, right? That's where you're struggling the most with, and where you feel like there should be the most accountability, etc. That's where the problem is.
People saying, why does somebody have to be blamed? Well, because there was obviously a massive failure. But then you have people like, nobody needs to be blamed.
Yeah, it's just I think it's hard to blame. I mean, for that specific thing, then if someone has to be blamed, it's like on that very much account. And I hate that I'm even saying this. That person should be the responder right there, right? And we would never blame that person on the paddleboard ever.
Travis can't wrap his head around the fact that accidents happen.
He's grumpy. Forrest is being grumpy. He's grumpy.
I don't think your first. If you think your first responders are civilians, that's an accident. Okay, fair enough. Then on principle level we disagree, for sure.
Right. And so if someone needs to be blamed, right, that like he went down and you have to put it on there, then that means that person on the paddleboard is in your line of fire. And I don't think anyone wants to blame that person. Right, like directly.
Yeah, but the point I was making was there's also a systems-wide level failure.
Right, which might not be one person, right? There might be a ton of people, right? And so this is what I wanted to get to. I know John's about to have to go. My thought on the Dave Castro being removed, right? So these demands reflect immediate steps necessary to begin to restore athlete trust in CrossFit sport. I think this is twofold. And Spin hit on this last night, and I think it's super rash, and it puts himself in a really bad spot as the PFAA. But I think they're doing it on the merit that 1 and 2, they don't want to deal with Dave to make 1 and 2 possible. They don't even want to communicate with Dave. And then I think that also has to do and is on the backing of how the meeting that happened on Thursday afternoon went down and what happened moving forward and the narrative that was used by Dave and CrossFit. And I don't know a ton behind the scenes, but it just seems that it's all like that. That's like when you like Brent's men's health thing, it was all about that. It was almost solely about the management of that meeting and the narrative that came out after that meeting, moving the weekend forward, right? It was very little about the safety response to the actual incident. And I don't know.
Why I feel like this has been brewing for a very long time. And like I told you, like this is nothing new. The response from CrossFit leadership, from the affiliate side and from the sports side, communication, the transparency has, and look, I have personal friends who currently work and have worked there, and it has always been terrible. So I feel like this is just, everyone says this saying all the time, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. This is just the tip of the iceberg for some of these guys who've been doing this for a long time, getting very poor communication and transparency from these guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Any other closing thoughts, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think.
Do you want to place a date? Do we want to call that?
The date? Yeah, the Dave firing date.
I said Saturday. Travis said Friday.
Like a push date, right? That's what they do at baby showers, guys. But I think just to be clear. So here's the date. This is what it is. But I do agree. I think that Dave's push date.
And I'll say Dave / Don or Don. You know what I mean? One or the other.
I kind of have energy too, but.
That makes me sad. But I do think it's coming. I think like
CJ?
A week, Tuesday, whatever that is, Tuesday next week.
Annie, what are you saying?
I'll go next Friday.
A week and a half. They're really pushing it now. 10 days.
I got this Friday. I got him already being out. They're just finalizing details. And listen, guys, everybody's gonna get in the comment. This podcast, Travis hates Dave. I love Dave.
I've noticed all the guys that hate Dave keep saying they love Dave.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? I have the ability to,
I don't think me or CJ have either said I love Dave. We just we're the ones with the
well, because I'm being more critical of the situation. I feel, and that's the thing, people can't separate the two and see that,
I hope so.
Just judging for the situation.
I hope he stays. I really do. I hope he stays, but I'm a realist, and I just don't think he does, right? And only because, like Danny said in the beginning of the conversation, right, is because of the day and age that we're in, and so I don't think with the way society is and cancel culture is that it's even feasible for him to stay.
I don't think there's a chance he stays for that.
This is mean, by the way. This was like the meanest
Sean
comment
Sullivan.
we've had yet.
The games are
Golly.
done, and all the athletes have to go get real jobs. Then what will you guys talk about? Sean, better question is, what are you going to watch on YouTube?
What are you going to watch on YouTube? I'll talk about programming every day. It'll be real boring then. Just like, hey.
I'll keep watching jiu-jitsu instruction on YouTube.
I'll probably do steroids and go into Olympic lifting. That's probably
perfect.
There it is.
I'll clean and jerk 405 and just be happy with that. That's what I'll do.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think CrossFit's in tough predicament either way.
They're in a tough spot. I think they're going to pull through for sure. And so this is what I really struggle. So last bit, what I really struggle with for the last week and a half is like, what does the future look like? And I think, we've gotten through, if we can get through, like 2020, right. And COVID, Floyd-19, like guys, CrossFit can get through anything. And I know this is like from an actual happenstance, someone died and it's flat out worse, but it's not worse based on the societal input and the backlash and outbursts of the community, which is very sad, but it is the way it is. And so the affiliates will live on and I think sport will live on. So it might look a little different. It might be another, valley in our rise to stardom, but I think it'll be okay. Barry, Barry, if you want a wrench, email cj@wodprep.com and I take bribes in the forms of Benjamins. All right.
Dan, you got anything else to say? Thanks for coming on, man. It was nice to have you and hear your perspective.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I got nothing else to say.
Cool.
I appreciate you guys giving me space to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, CJ will get you back on. I know you guys probably got lots more to say. Thanks for watching, guys.